Now we know that placement of you know the something is coming here which I have to say. Got it. Okay. So we understand that. We know that Jupiter tends to harm the house that he occupies, but here is instability. So what is happening here exactly? Go back to the Arishtadhyaya and you will find 10th house is also a house which is relevant uh, in connection with Arishta. Arishta generally Arishtadhyaya refers to passing away of a person. So here that 12th lord goes to the 10th house, and whenever there is harm to the 12th house, 10th house extremely sorry, then there is a generally it is malefic, but then there is a possibility that during the dasha of that planet or the lord of the 10th house, there could be passing away of a person. We have to remember that dashas do not operate in vacuum. You have also to take into consideration the transit at the time of occurrence of it. This does not necessarily mean that the Jataka will not have any other good result. So we have to first differentiate between the two. We are only talking about the Maraka part of it. That its own bhava, the other bhava, the ninth bhava is 12th from Jupiter, could also be one of the reasons why he's saying, because nobody is a final word in astrology as far as I understand in so many years. That is why we have got 18 Pravartakas who have given different opinions about astrology, and Pravartakas are the great ones, followed by then Acharya, and then followed by some small people like us talking about it. And there are umpteen number of commentaries on a single text, which also you will find, because that has perhaps to do more with the way the Sanskrit becomes sometimes difficult to understand. Again, remember, as it will come in the next sloka, this ninth lord happens to be also simultaneously lord of the 12th bhava, that we know. So, Labha Randhropati Yadi is one of the shlokas about which the reference will come in the next shloka that I'm talking about. Plus, Saturn, being the 11th lord, is also a secondary Maraka. He is sixth from the sixth. Utrika Sthana Maraka. Occupying his bhava, Jupiter tends to express himself through that bhava. This weak Jupiter aspect in the fourth house also gives you, let us say, lack of happiness for a long time. And he also aspects the 12th house of Kutumba. When one dies, he is no longer with the Kutumba. So that is the idea behind it. So 12th lord sitting in the 10th house. But why not other planets? Mercury can as well do that. He's only talking about Jupiter. Please remember this. Jupiter is also called Jiva, one who can grant life. So we don't look at him in that direction, but that is what he does. That is why the fetus grows gradually, which is the habit of Jupiter. I'm sure you know how the fetus progresses, which planets rule over the fetus, and when the limbs come out, and you will understand the logic there. So here, she is only Maraka. It does not mean she doesn't give good results for other things, because Lord of the 12th, if in debility, in a good place, gives another thing which is called as the what we call the Viparita Raja. I think Faladipika mentions it. So this is a complex thing. In general case, we will never imagine the ninth lord occupying the 10th house, one, plus a 12th lord, who also happens to be the ninth lord, so thus being able to give good results during his own dasha, will lead to Bharata. So Bhavartha Ratnakar has exceptions. He has even exceptions to exceptions. And I always tell the young astrologers that, see, knowing rules is fine, but we must understand the exceptions and also the exceptions to those exceptions. And then only the rule can be applied. Apply, of course, taking into consideration the Kala, Patra, Desha, and other things. But this is a complex shloka to understand. It took me a lot of time to understand exactly why this happens. Till I connected the 10th house and the Arishta, which is given, and you will find in many cases that some malefic is aspecting the 10th house. Many a times even Saturn aspecting the 10th house, which happens to be his own house in the Naisargik, what is called as a natural zodiac. And then you will find that, go through charts that you come across, and you will find this does happen. Does it have anything to do with the ninth lord going to 10th house? No, that is a different issue. Please remember, he is only talking about it being a maraka. Very selective shlokas he has taken, though there are 300, about 150 are about the yogas in Bhavartha Ratnakara. Earlier ones are about specific lagnas. So a specific lagna, a specific rashi, a specific lagna lord occupying it leads to certain things which are exceptional. And that is what Sunil was talking about. And this is the great Bhavartha Ratnakara. Just for the sake of, record, I am giving an example chart. As Sunil knows, I am very reluctant to give example charts for the simple reason that those charts we don't get when the real life charts come to us. There will be many variations, and yogas have to be almost, what can I say? They should be as they are mentioned. So, if suppose Mercury is aspecting this Jupiter in the 10th house, then there will be some change, because then Mercury, by his own aspect on the 10th house, will strengthen the 10th house. You know that Mercury, Jupiter, and the Lord of the house aspecting the house strengthens it. Which, again, why 10th house should be connected with death is something which one must think about. Of course, at my age, there is a lot of time to think. Younger people have lesser time, but they should think about it. And what happens when you are there? You don't do any work. You can't do any work. See, it is the parakrama of the 8th house, isn't it? So that is why when you read Arishtadhyaya, you will see harm to the 10th house can cause death. And this is the reason why the 12th lord, who by himself can act as Maraka, occupying the 10th bhava, and in debility, though he is Jupiter, causes death during his dasha. Because whenever this will happen, it is not going to happen all over the time. When his dasha operates and the transits will be favorable, at that time it will happen. So, can we go to the next slide where the chart I have given? This is again thanks to Sunil and Saptarishi. They have given such a beautiful software where you can find out the position of the planets and go to it. So otherwise, I am absolutely lazy in keeping records and finding out charts to suit. So this is about Shamaquery Bastia. As you can see, I mean, I have written everything. So it was Saturn Mahadasha and then different Antardashas. I have gone up to Devadasha just to explain that even ultimately last delivery will be done by the Devadasha and the transit at that time, isn't it? So Guru appears twice, end of it also Guru will appear. And at that time, Saturn and Jupiter both were placed in the 10th house in transit. So this is how the Shamaquery Bastiat's chart reveals that is when he left for his heavenly abode, we should call. Death is only nothing but transformation. So this is how it happens. So this is just an example chart. But do remember that this Bhavartha Ratnakara has some complexity. Actually, it can be taken as an what we can exercise in trying to understand why certain complex shlokas come and what is the logic behind it. And I can only tell you or talk to you about logic behind yoga and how I look at it. So the next shloka that comes will be about, can we take the next slide, please? Yeah. Now here, we know Dharma Karmadhipati Yoga. Everybody knows about it and everybody talks about it. He has said that Mesha Lagne tu Jatasya Raja Yogo Labhyate Bhagya Rajesha Sambandhe Matri Nahi Na Samshaya. That for Aries Lagna, Lord of the 9th and Lord of the 10th coming together does not lead to a Raj Yoga. So why? Because See, anyway, I mean, barring the 12th house which connects to it, there should not be any reason. And 12th house, a lot of the 12th house gives results of the 9th house generally, unless he has other application. So what is happening? If we go to Laghu Parashar, we find a shloka which does not exactly replicate this, but is talking about the same thing. It says that Lord of the ninth and Lord of the 10th, or any square Lord and trine Lord coming together, will generally give a good Raja. Actually, Laghu Parashari, if I remember right now, memory is at premium for me at my age. But even in Dharma Karmadhipati Yoga, he says if they happen to be Lord of the 8th and the 11th, Labarandra, the Povliti, that you want to say, then it doesn't happen. Appear. Now, here is just a small variation. The variation is Saturn also happens to be Lord of the 11th, and Jupiter also happens to be Lord of the 12th. So instead of the 8th house, which is about which Laghu Parashari has already said, here he is telling perhaps the importance of the 12th Lord in sometimes giving something less than what is thought to be available to Lord of the 9th, even if he is the 12th Lord. So here we see that both the Lords are here, they are 9th and 10th Lord, it's correct, but they are also 11th and 12th Lord. And that is why only mere, connection between the two is not going to cause any Rajyog, is what is being said here. I think if the placement is in some place like 10th itself, or in the 9th itself, or even in the 7th, then there would be still some, sort of an intensity in the Raj Yoga, which is rather Dharma Karmadhipati Yoga, as we call it, will remain there, because occupation of their own houses will give them some additional strength. But this is my opinion. But remember, so just don't go by Dharma Karmadhipati Yoga, because we hear this a lot. I mean, I at my age listen to Buddhaditya Yoga, but people forget that Sun and Mercury are always within 28 degrees of each other. So it's not as unusual as thought. So what is unusual is the distance between the two. Similarly here, because they happen to be the second lordship that they have, brings up some negativity in this yoga, in the Dharma Karmadhipati Yoga. Perhaps its placement in certain bhavas might not give it that negativity as we assume, but it would still have some negativity, some lessening of the results would be there. This is why Bhavartha Ratnakara becomes a complex and at the same time a very good text to study about. It was of a very small size, so being young, we used to think, who is going to read this? I have written no much Sahita, I read this Sahita, it's okay. But this gives the Ratnakar, the gems about, how we interpret our charts. So if we go to the, we have got some time. So if we go to the third one, I think after this I have given something. Next slide, please. Here is one principle and how it is to be applied is to be explained. Pitrukaraka bhavoscha bhagya bhagyeshwaropiva. Ubhauto vedauskatam pitru bhagyam udirita. Which means the karaka for ninth bhava and also of father. Who is karaka for both is son. We know that. Pitru karaka is karaka for father and Lord of the ninth house. If both of them occupy the 12th house, then the so sun and the ninth house, obviously, as you know, occupy the 12th house, then the fortune of father of the Jataka goes. Generally, it is said that any planet which occupies the 12th house the father or mother or everybody's fortune. But here he is very specific. He is talking about the Karaka also has to be there, and the Lord also has to be there to give it that strength. So why does this happen? We would generally think that since the 12th Lord is in the, well, rather 9th Lord is in the 12th house, and the Karaka is also in the 12th house. So the Jataka's father's Bhagya should be expended because it is house of expenditure, isn't it? But we are not talking about Jataka. That is from the point of view of Jataka. In such a case, that Jataka might get his fortune abroad, or he might, and rather should, work away from father, which is a very different thing. To gain whatever fortune he is supposed to lose, he can get it in distant lands. That's a different. Here it is about only father. Why? Look at the placement, then look at the 9th house and what is happening. See, this Lord of the 9th and Karaka of the 9th is placed in the 4th house for father. Take the 9th house to learn, and you will find out. And both of them aspect the 10th bhava of the Jataka's father. And as we know, the father Bhagya will naturally grow because Lord of the 9th house, the Jataka himself, aspecting the 10th bhava, indicates that the Jataka will have capacity, Jataka's father will have capacity to earn something. Son also aspects there, which also indicates, recognition from government, etc., etc. Son, whatever son represents, 10th house is house of recognition. So this is the roundabout way he has tried to tell us, and don't only say that only son is in the 10th house, so Bhagya of the Jataka's father will grow, and that Bhagya grows of Jataka's father. So it is not only Bhava Lord goes and everything happens. So both of them, the Karaka and the Bhava Lord, should be in the 12th house. This would also apply to the mother of the. See, you have to always to go by the extension of the logic, because Sanskrit being a language of brevity, they used to give one principle at one time and accept that you will apply it later on at every place. So this is how we go about it. For Mercury, he will be aspecting his own house anyway, natural house, and you can make it out. I don't have to tell you. But remember that only one planet going does not mean that Bhava Lord gains something. It is a human being who is gaining something, and the Karaka should also be there. This is what is being, impressed upon our mind by this yoga. And I think I have given one chart reluctantly as usual, but so if we go to the next slide, we can see that happening in practice. Like Senta Berger, she was a singing sensation and acting and whatever, and we see Lord of the 9th, Saturn is occupying the 10th bhava, 12th bhava, and Lord of Father, that is Sun, is also in the 12th bhava. So what happened? She started accompanying her father since the age of 4. And who used to, at the age of 4, who controls the money? It is the father, isn't it? She then became, of course, a great singer, etc., etc. But see, at age of 4, that is when we know that whatever happens is because of the, bhagya of mother and father and other things. And so naturally, she became a sensation, and her father was, I think, a pianist. And so he started earning more. Why? Because in Senta's chart, Lord of the 9th and Karaka of 9th, both were occupying the 12th house. So this is how it manifests. And of course, we can always say that there is a, what we call, the Necha Bhanga Yoga for Saturn and all those things, but they are all sitting in the 12th house. Applying the regular logic that at least I learned when I was very young, it should indicate some harm to the father and everything. But naturally, she also then later on worked away from father and whatever happened. But that happens at a later stage. As soon as a Jataka is born, something has to happen. If the chart is having indication of some Raj Yoga or whatever, the father or mother should earn. So this is what is happening. So this is how the complexity of those shlokas we have to understand, and of course finding it was very difficult for me, but with Sunilji's, software which he was kind enough to send me. I could put in those, explain it in this bhava, and then it would throw out the charts. So that you can also do. But so remember that when it is, even I generally, when I look at Sun in the 12th house, I say the Jataka will earn much more from away from his father. So I look at it in a different fashion. But generally, father also gets something. Even placement of the Karaka also plays a role. But if the Lord of the 9th house is also there, or suppose Moon is in the 12th house and Lord of the 4th is also there, then the entire picture changes. For whom? For the mother or for the father, not for the Jataka. So please understand this. Because then there can be expenditure on father because Sun is in the 12th house. So whatever planet is in the 12th house, it indicates the expenditure that the Jataka will commit on that account. So what I'm trying to convey is that we should learn to separate those things very carefully, and we will reach to some good conclusion. I think there is one more, there is some time. I never want to encroach upon anybody's time. So I think there is one more slide here. Is it there? If you can. Yeah. So this is also a complex thing. Shashtastho yadi va chandro buddhi kaushalya van bhav. Dvitiyastho bhavet chandra netra chanchala van bhav. This is a yoga. What does he say? If normally in Sanskrit you read the reverse way, like I think in Urdu Shairi also you do. So if Moon is placed in the second house, the person has a roving eye, is a regular, Chanchalvan is generally the roving eye. But would it only be roving eye we should think about? There is something called as floating, floater they call it. Sometimes one eye suddenly moves for some people. I think some ophthalmologists are there, they know it. I think it is called floater. Suddenly that eye rotates and then again comes back to normal. Both the things are possible. Why? We know that second house, anyway, is also eyes, and more particularly the right eye, obviously. And Moon, by his own nature, is a movable planet. He has variations. Okay. Moon also represents the left eye of a person. So one of the eyes could be, suddenly rotating. One, it could also be roving eye, because Moon, one of the attributes of Moon, we know about mother, we know about everything. We many a times forget that he is called Kami, one who is lascivious. This that is why, I mean, all the attributes of a planet, if we know, then we can come to the conclusion why. But that is also possible. That some people have a habit of, having a, for lack of good words, I will call roving eye. They look at anybody and then they want to attach to X, Y, or Z or whatever. So both the things are possible. It is not necessary that if it is a floater eye or some problem to the eye, then that person will be, or the eyesight might be sometimes good, sometimes bad. That is also possible because chanchal means variable. Generally, in Sanskrit, chanchal is in a way expressed as a slightly derogative term, but it need not be. Please understand this. This is about this is Bhavartha. He's talking only about few things. Moon in the second house also can give one speech which has varying pitch, as was the case with Atal Bihari. I mean, those who are from India will understand. So this is pretty easy to understand. We know the lasciviousness of Moon, that he varies always, on all 27 days, 30 tithis, he has different size and all that. And he is Kami, he is called lusty or lascivious. And you must be remembering that story of Daksha marrying of his 27 daughters with him, and he was always involved only with one and all this. So those, of course, Puranic stories are backward integration of sciences, is the way I look at it. So it's not, that is one way of creating iconography. So it becomes easy to understand as the young boy at 5 years of age who used to go to Gurukul. Young people like stories, so stories were fed to them, but having some principle behind it, which was of use to those people in later life as they grew and they went into of their own, specialization, it was easy to. But the next one is more complex. Shashtastho yadi va chandro buddhi kaushalyavan bhavet. If moon is in the sixth bhav, he has expertise in utilizing his intellect. Let us put it this way. Buddhi kaushalyavan is, kaushalya means expert or having ability to use things properly. Buddhi, you know intellect. Why in the sixth? Is something which should arise in one's mind and which is not, unheard of. It is normal. We say that if moon is in the sixth house, Jataka is more attached to the aunts than his own mother, like that, or he thinks his mother is his enemy, and all those things you all know. So what is happening? For that, it is good if we also read other texts. Of course, all of you must have read it. Read Faladipika. And then you will find moon is connected with Karshaka. That is a farmer. Farming is one of his attributes. What does a farmer do? He understands how to use his resources. Because there is a variation always in the work that is done by a farmer. So sixth house moon has to do something with farming, and the greatest thing that a farmer to survive does is what? He understands if the weather changes there, he will change the crop pattern. If market changes ups and downs, then he will change the things that he sows. Looking at the market, he will think about whether he should, store the seeds or sell them, or in which market he should sell them, or he should just get rid of the crop, like recently happened in Maharashtra with the heavy flood. The crop were anyway, they were going to bring them nothing, so they just remove the crop and sow again. This is using your buddhi. Buddhi does not mean academic buddhi. Buddhi means your ability to understand variables and use it properly. And moon being connected with Karshaka. In those days, Karshaka was the only thing. It might interest you to know that what we call Vaishya also means farmer in Sanskrit dictionary, if you check it, because he has that understanding of how to use the resources. And sixth house, anyway, the Karaka is Buddha. So sixth house, so it doesn't mean he will be a farmer. When he says Kushaka, we have to take it in the larger context. Mantreshwara's Phaladipika mentions it. I think it is chapter 2 or something. I don't remember nowadays. You go through it, you will find it. And I think this is why he says that moon in the sixth house makes one expert in his intellect, means utilizing his intellect to come out of difficult situation. This is what is moon about. If we look at it from different point of view, it is also house of enemy, but moon is, variable. So sometimes there will be enemy and sometimes it will be got rid of. For that also you need intellect. And this is how Bhavartha Ratnakara goes about, talking about complex things. And we sometimes, when I was young, I think I spent about 8 or 10 days just to understand that Shashashto Yadiva Chandro Buddhi Kaushalyavan Bhavet, why it is so. Because in natural zodiac, it is a house of enemy of moon. So why should it be? It has nothing to do with the fifth house, which is house of, neither he is Karaka for the fifth house. Fifth house is house of intellect, acquired knowledge, and so on. And then I suddenly remember that Karshaka is said. What does the Karshaka do? What does the farmer do? How does he survive? All those droughts and everything he survives, and still is happy with it. Makes his. He knows that if the farming is not profitable, then he will ask his son to go study outside. He will maybe not eat something and somehow or other arrange finances for the son, teach him and make him use his excellence in the best possible way. So this Shashtasto Chandra Buddhi Kaushalyavan Bhavet has to do with that part of it. This is how we have to look at Shloka. I think there is one more, if there is time and if there is one more slide, we can talk about it. Avid bhai, is there another one? Yeah, this is also another interesting one. Kshatriyanam Jataketu Rajeshe Vikrame Yati Raja Yogasya Nyunam Hi Bhavet Eva No Samshaya. Here, what is said is, if the Jataka belongs to Kshatriya race, you can treat it, of course. And Lord of the 10th is placed in the third house. Then the Jataka shall have a diminishing Raj Yoga, or shall have something less in the Raj Yoga. This is what is being talked about. Now, why Kshatriya race? Here comes in the what we call as the Varna divisions. Varnas are not castes. Please remember that. I mean, though we say caste of the planets, but Varnas are not castes. Varnas are defined by Lord Krishna as, we say, I think, Chatur Varnam Maya Krutva. I have created the Chatur Varna. How? Guna Karma Vibhagasha. According to their qualities and according to what they do. So, in ancient times, it was warrior races which used to rule, and I mean, that is what Kshatriya used to do. Kshatriya is one who protects. Shma is the name of land. That is why you will see a king being called Mahipa. Mahi is also name of land. So he protects his land and acquires more and more land by the valor of his arms. So, so what is happening? Why Lord of the 10th going to the 6th house? Should the 10th house is kingdom, you know that. I mean, it is the throne of the king, as they call it. Also, house of recognition, house of certification, and many more. He goes to the third house. So, why should he not express himself to the third house, which is house of valor? And for a Kshatriya, he should get more land, but that doesn't happen. Why? So, now we look at the relation between the 10th and the third house. The third house is 6 to the 10th. We go back to the basic principle of how placement of a bhavesh in the bhava is to consider. If Lagna Lord happens to be in the 6th house, what happens is the Jataka doesn't have to go and find some enemy. He is his own enemy. This is what I generally say. That means his actions themselves harm him only, nobody else. Here, 10th Lord, the kingdom goes to the 6th house. So what happens? Jataka's own action will lead to his lessening of his, kingdom or whatever authority he has. I mean, we need not always go for only the kings, because nowadays kings are only in some few countries which are maybe postage stamp size. But of course, there are some which are larger, but generally, and democracy rules it. So, whoever is the ruler, or his recognition could be lost. Why? Because of his own action. So this is how we have to understand. Otherwise, Raja Yoga, everybody says, I have got Raja Yoga. There are umpteen number of Raja Yoga in everybody's chart. You look at any chart and you will find one Raja Yoga actually. But there are also negative yoga, isn't it? So we have to balance between the two and come to the final conclusion of what is likely to happen and how to come out of it. I mean, the other part could be how to come out. So I have taken one example of a prince who was, of course, 10th in line of succession, but that line breaking is a big problem. And so I think he was a Dutch prince. I have given his chart. You can look at it. I think Floris was his name. Yeah, Floris Prince. He was there. He wanted to marry somebody. Dutch constitution says all those in the line of succession for kingdom have to obtain permission of the parliament before they marry. He married without obtaining that permission. Perhaps she was from a different, I don't know. I mean, that is never mentioned there. And he lost his right of succession to the kingdom. So you can see how the Raja Yoga goes new. Does it mean that he was not still called? He was still called. He had nothing to do with royalty. He had no privileges of the royalty. I think he was then later on working in some finance company or whatever. So he earned on his own. That is a different issue. But this is how. See, Lord of the 10th, Saturn occupies the third house. Who made it? He himself made. His own actions, 10th house is karma bhava, his own actions led to diminishing in his, kingdom or right over kingdom. Actually, it was wiped off. So this is complex, isn't it? Otherwise, 10th Lord in the third house, I would say that he can, get recognition through his valor. Yeah, he did get. He became one of the, I think, directors or something of a big financial company, but not as kingdom. So those yogas will also operate. When the yogas operate naturally, all of you know it is during the dasha, operation of dasha. And I was telling, as I was telling with the first aphorism about 10th, I mean Jupiter aspecting, occupying the 10th house. That happens when the transits are also, like at that time, the Saturn or something like that is aspecting the 10th house. So some loss of reputation, some loss of, you know, authority would happen. So this is it, and I think I have taken much of your time and much of your patience. So I don't think there is anything after this, isn't it? I mean, this is the last one. I hope.
Thank you, Chandrasekhar.
Any questions? My pleasure. My pleasure. There is no silly question. Vishalji.
Sir,
Yeah.
one question. There was a sloka you mentioned about Pitra Karak Bhavesya Bhagya Bhageshwar.
Yeah.
So how do you interpret that? Do you take ninth of ninth, or is it just sticking to the ninth?
No, sticking to the ninth. See, because what is being said is Karaka for Pitru, which is obviously
ninth,
and Karaka for the Bhava. So again, ninth Bhava, isn't it?
Yeah.
And its Lord. So it is ninth Bhava Lord and Sun. In the 12th house. Ninth from ninth is an extension of it is a what we call tertiary strength it gets. It is Bhavat Bhava principle, but that has a very Bhavat Bhava principle is also very complex to apply as a matter of fact, because as we go ahead, so fourth from fourth is mother. So why not fourth from that also should be mother, and then the Jataka himself should be his mother. We should think about it. It has to be used with what I like to call Vivek, sense of proportion. It doesn't always work out in the same fashion as we see. First level is okay, ninth from ninth is there will be something of the father in the son, but many a times you see the son fighting with the father, isn't it? So take it with a in case of progeny, you can take fifth and ninth, either of the houses to be, capable of giving progeny, because 1, 2, 3, the third progeny is anyway the ninth house. So that way we can take, but not always. And that is the exception and the exception to exception that I was talking about, that we must understand. Because Karaka will always be Sun. And of course, as you know, you are astrologers, even 3 months in astrology or even 3 days in astrology, one will understand that when we say that Sun is only the Karaka for father, so that is called the riddles of the Sthira Karaka, I call them. But sages do say that even Venus can be Karaka for father if he is strong, isn't it? But do we take it? It has different connotations. See, Venus rules over semen and only father can have semen. So that is where the connection goes. So it has nothing to do with father as such. Or Chandra, Moon or Mars. Strongest of them is said to be Karaka for father, mother. Even by the great Parashara, when you read it, even I think by Jaimini, and most of them have said, what are they talking about? We must think about. That is for Mars rules ovum. So it has different connotation. So I think, at least I think so. But anyway, everybody has his own. See, astrology is, I always call it, is like, you see, a great elephant being trying to be understood by 7 blind men, out of which I am also one. So whatever we get hold of, we think that is the ultimate. But the knowledge is vast. So this is
sorry. So that Venus or Sun is for Sthir Karaka. Like on J Hora, every planet is marked as Atma Karaka, Amatya Karaka, or Pitri Karaka.
No, that is Chara Karaka.
Yeah, Char Karaka I'm asking about.
It is a different concept. It has to do with the residence of a planet in a particular Rashi. Longer the residence, stronger the impact on your psyche. Like somebody comes and stays with you for 3 years, naturally your operational systems will also change. See, where you keep the bed or when you get up, everything will change. If I come to you for a day, it will be a minor inconvenience if you go away. And that is the idea behind it. So the planet which has for the most period remained in the inner Rashi becomes the Atmakara, one who can mold your way of thinking. This is the principle behind it, and that is called Charakaraka. That is Charakaraka. There are Bhavakarakas also, you know that Bhavakarakas are also there. And Bhavakaraka, ninth is always the Karaka for the, Sun is always the Karaka for the ninth Bhava. So there are great riddles in Karakas. You will know that. Third house is, Karaka is Mars. So can we consider even fifth house as the Maraka to be Karaka of Mars to be Karaka for fifth house, because it is third from third, but we don't. So that is where the riddle is there. And that is why I'm generally more, focused on trying to explain it at length, which is boring, of course, I know, to the hearer, but then old men anyway speak more. I think that is how we have to understand it. There is a reason behind it. See, Mars and Moon, why? Moon is mother, we know. Where Mars comes in? We say it is a male planet. No, but Oha is ruled by Mars. There is an aphorism which says, Bandhavakara, you know the aphorism, when the first menses start, then Moon and Mars have to be, one has to be in Upachaya and another has to aspect it. So this is how it happens. So many a times, that is what I was saying. The Sanskrit is a complex language. So as I was talking with Sunil ji 2 minutes back, that even one shloka might take one full page to explain exactly what is being said. And I try to explain it at length so that everybody learns it. Even I am still a student, so don't think that I might have studied for so many years. It doesn't make any difference. Every time you understand something new, you learn something new. Knowledge is vast, and we think that we know everything. As one grows, one understands we know hardly anything. The knowledge is very vast. So, no. The young boy was saying that it is a stupid. No question is stupid. Actually, your questions teach us something, because we have to think. You think that we are great, so we will have to think. Otherwise, at our age, we will always assume that we know everything, and it's fine. So, no, it is not the case. We learn from you, don't worry. So, shall I take your leave, sir?
Chandrasekhar ji.
Yeah.
I have a small question to ask you.
No question is small. I was telling you just now.
Yeah, that is your humbleness, I can understand.
No, it is so.
And I am a great fan of Bhavartha Ratnakara.
Wonderful. So you are like me.
And one shloka which is there,
Yeah.
I don't remember the exact shloka, but it says the Karka or Bhava Lord of any house.
Yeah.
If it goes to 12th house from Lagna,
Yeah.
becomes very proficient and prosperous.
Powerful. Yeah. But who becomes prosperous is that.
That is what I was asking.
That is exactly what is being said. Son going
yeah,
to
that
12,
is what I was asking you.
But he adds one more. He is giving us hint that don't take it only in isolation. The Bhava Lord also should be there, so that the strength will increase. So he is talking about what happens with Karaka is also with the Bhava Lord in a very different roundabout fashion. That is the specialty of Ramanujacharya. When I started writing commentary on it, it used to take me so much time, or sometimes one shloka. One or two could be easy, but then it is really difficult. But that is the beauty of Bhavartha Ratnakara. Even Laghu Parashara, if we go into depth of it, then it is really complex and really easy. Once we understand the key to it, then it is very,
what I was telling.
Yeah.
When you read Laghu Parashari,
yeah,
and simultaneously if you read Bhavartha Ratnakara,
yeah, you think that
your ability to predict will become very high.
Grow. Yeah, my father told me. I told you. I used to read. I loved reading. Actually.
And now coming over to Bhavartha Bhavan.
Yeah.
You said.
Yeah.
Any bhava from any bhava.
Yeah.
Agreed, sir. It is only fixed.
Yeah.
It is not like this that fourth to fourth. It is fixed regarding Lagna.
Yeah.
Any house. From fourth house from Lagna, again that is the fourth house.
Yeah.
Seventh house, but it will not continue in what you were telling us.
Yeah. It does not go on continuing forever. It doesn't.
Not go
It
in
doesn't.
continuity.
And that is where we have to apply our viveka, as I call it.
That is Bhavar Bhavam.
Yeah,
The
Bhavar
concept of
Bhavam is
Bhavartha
okay,
is fixed,
but
fixed.
Bhavar
It is
Bhavam is
fixed.
not everywhere. Yeah.
Yes.
See, there are so many beautiful things there. We talk about what we say, Karaka Bhavanasha. See, Bhavartha Ratnakara tells something else. He says it reduces the intensity. It doesn't say it destroys it. So, as I said, it's wonderful that you also love Bhavartha Ratnakara. I mean, when I started writing, so the book grew like anything. I never thought it would be that big.
It's simply 80-page book.
Yeah.
But you can decipher in 800 pages.
Yeah. I think I have written about 300 something pages, and the large size was not the small ones. I was also surprised. How come this is late? Then I understood that I have a habit of, some say good, some say bad, of explaining at length. So
please accept my gratitudes.
My humble thanks to you, sir.